I will call to order the July 15th, 2024 City Council meeting. Councilman, Shaddy, would you like to lead us in prayer?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day you've blessed us with, but we pray first and foremost, Lord, there's so many things to pray for, but we pray for those who lost their lives at the event in Pennsylvania, even the shooter and his life and his family. We just pray that there would be a fresh revelation of you, of your love, of who you are, of your truth for all involved. Lord, for this nation, Lord, as the leaders are calling out for unity, Lord, I just pray as well that we would all take heed to that, how we can unite even in our differences. But ultimately, Lord, in your truth, that we could unite in your truth. So reveal more of your truth to us as a nation, to us individually, here now as a council, Lord, as we decide on things here, as we help govern this city and work together with all the people of the city. Give us the wisdom and guidance. And again, just a greater level of patience with each other and compassion for each other, for one another, as we work through this life that you have, these delicate lives that you have given us, blessed us with. I pray we glorify you this day and the days moving forward, to glorify you with our lives. And we pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Got ahead of myself. City Finance Officer Bob Zine, the roll.
Okay. Shuddy?
Here.
Tupper?
Here.
Bueller? Absent. Danforth?
Here.
Holeen?
Here.
Jurens?
Here.
Peters?
Here.
Thank you.
Action to approve the agenda. Motion by Peters. Second by Holeen. All those in favor signal by saying, or any other discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now is the time for the open session. If you have something to speak upon that is not on tonight's agenda, feel free to do so. If you want to come up to the mic and introduce yourself.
Dan Fierstead here, representing the Lions Den Cannabis Dispensary in Watertown. Okay. Yeah, I handed one of these out to each of you guys. I had Jennifer Collins print them off for me in the finance office. This is kind of what we spoke about right away when you guys were lowering it. It was just the way it got presented was kind of more of a demand than here's the reason why. So pretty plain and simple here. You can read two of us paid $75,000 and the third one only paid $55,000. I realized they paid up after we lowered it for this year, but and there's also, I noticed a couple on there, the dates she might have printed on Dispensary of Watertown, 11/61/21. I don't know. I didn't print it, so that's straight from them. But obviously, we've all been in business basically the same amount of time, and we've paid $20,000 more than them. So I'm just asking for that $20,000 refund for myself and Dakota Dispensaries too, obviously, because they paid that same amount of money. And I hope it's just plain and simple math at this point, and it doesn't have to be a big debate or anything, and we can just do what's right and get that refunded to us. It's about all, honestly. So,
That it?
yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Fierstead.
Yep. Thank you.
Whoever wants to come up next, please state your name.
Yes.
Push the button on the mic, Rich.
Yes, my name is Richard Dunn, and I come to you folks tonight with an issue that kind of breaks the heart to me. I have a little dog. His name was Chloe, and she was out at, I can't think of the name of the dog pooch closet that's out off 81. And she was jumped and miserably, I mean miserably mauled. She had 14 broken ribs. She had bites all over her. And she was in vet care for about 10 days before we finally decided it's time. I have some pictures. If it'd be okay. But the real meaning for this visit is when it came down to a board met that meets when these kind of incidents happen. And we met with the police department also. When it came down to, there's no ordinance that's going to help people when it comes to issues like this. When issues were just made that were just simply wrong. And Chloe paid the price for it. She was a great little dog, and I'm not jumping up and down on the fact that she was a great little dog, but she was, and she didn't deserve this. And it was simply a broken rule. It shouldn't have been. And it cost her life. And I'd like to just see, I don't know how we do this, but I would like to see an ordinance in her name that somehow governs what these people do. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. I'm just going to add to the fact that I do sit on the Animal Control Board, and I was at that meeting, a very emotional meeting. Whether or not we need to look at the ordinance, probably do. But the other dog was declared a dangerous animal, and we upheld their declaration. And that dog is no longer allowed around other pets or any place in the public. So we did take our point to the ordinance of what we have and put it in place. And I'm sure we can get together and maybe review that. So
I sure would appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Is it on? Mike Johnson. All right, John. Hard to follow that because I'm also speaking about my issue is a dog park. I've been using it and got involved in getting it set up. So we have concerns because of canine trainers in town. The one that uses the most, Shauna Gear, with Happy Tails, brings in 15 to 20 dogs at a time. So they're on leashes, but any of us trying to get into the park creates a little issue once in a while because she gets mad if our dogs interact with her students. So she's a for-profit business using the dog park as her training area. I guess I'm okay with her being in the other parks, right across the parking lot from the dog park. We have, above a huge field that they use for various activities. Used to be soccer. I think it's lacrosse now, but lots of parking there. She can go over there. We've had a few incidents where some of my friends have gone in there and the dogs are interacting, and the other dogs get aggressive. They're on a leash, but sometimes they don't get pulled back. Again, a friend of mine had his sleeve ripped off by a pit bull trying to protect his dog. Why is she allowed to do this? She says she has full, park board says she can do it, but I don't think that's been approved. But for a for-profit business to use the dog park as her training facility, me and a lot of people do not care for it because sometimes we can't even get in there because she's training dogs to walk in quietly to the dog park, which I commend her for what she does. But it interrupts all of us that have our dogs to go over there and enjoy interactions with the other dogs. I broke up a lot of fights over the years, but most of the time just control them and they're easy. And but everybody's running around. But if they see her class in there, a lot of them turn around and just leave because they're not going to deal with the issue of her and those dogs. Because once you let your dog out there, and like mine runs to every one of them, gets a treat because they all carry a little training treat. And then she's trying to shoo them away because she's trying to teach a class. Well, I'm sorry, this is meant to be a leash-free zone for us dog owners, and that's what we set it up for years and years ago. So we just feel that she should not be allowed to do her training in the dog park. That's my full issue. Hopefully, work something out.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'll close the open and look for approval on the consent agenda. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry, I did already approve it.
We'll forget.
Oh, okay. So we'll move down to 10A, which is first reading ordinance number 24-10 zoning text amendment to chapter 21.90 definition of the revised ordinance, City of Watertown, to define the use of storage facilities indoors. It's Heath?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the first reading of a zoning text amendment. It's simply adding an addition to the definitions section of our zoning ordinance. It adds a specific definition for an indoor storage facility. Really, that's simply what's before the council tonight, first reading. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at their meeting. I believe, was this vote unanimous? Yeah, recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission. There's some context, some background on how this got to the council. I'm hesitant to share some of it because really it's irrelevant to this definition, but I'll share it anyway. The original intent was that we have a BP Business Park zoning district out by I-29. That's where the Redland Arts Center, Terex building, Worthy Electronics, that's now housed in what was the verifications building, that whole business park area. A realtor had a potential buyer for one of those properties that wanted to potentially utilize the property for indoor storage facility. That's what sparked this discussion. And adding this use to the BP zoning district was denied by the Planning Commission, was voted down, and the applicant did not want to pursue that to the council, which they would have had the opportunity to do. The council can overturn a Planning Commission denial. They decided not to pursue the BP specific addition of this use to that zoning district. However, staff felt it was still pertinent and helpful to add this definition to the zoning ordinance. And so what we would do is we'd have this in our toolbox. It would still need to be added to any given zoning district in the future by action of the Planning Commission and the City Council. Right now, we're just establishing a definition in the zoning ordinance. The use is not a permitted nor a conditional use yet that's been established in any of the zoning districts. So there's just a little bit of context there to help add clarity on why this is before you and just in the form of a definition. And I can stand by for any questions. I do have, I think the exact language of the definition is on page 2 of the council packet information. An indoor storage facility is a building or buildings for the storage of non-hazardous commercial or private goods and materials in a climate-controlled structure with individual units within a common structure with access to units available from the interior only, without water or sewer utilities for individual units. That's how we've derived our indoor storage facility definition. This came from staff's research, other communities. If you can picture in larger cities, you'll oftentimes see a U-Haul. I'll use that brand name as an example. U-Haul has several of these in large communities. You'll drive by on the interstate and see a U-Haul indoor storage facility where they've got It's just a shell of a building, and then inside there you've got climate-controlled storage. We do have, coincidentally, one of these uses in town already, right next door to us here at City Hall. That's the only indoor storage facility we have, right to the south of City Hall. Just to give you some context about what this is about and how it establishes that use by definition. And again, we will establish that use per zoning district at a later time as the need or desires arise. With that, I'll stand by for questions.
This being the first reading, there will be no action taken, but I will allow if anybody's got any questions for Public Works Director Von Eyck. Councilman Danforth.
Mr. Von Eyck, so if this were to go into the BP district, then any future building, any add-on, anything related to this would be subject to whatever the building requirements are in that zone then, correct?
That is true, but again, just for clarity, this is not, approving this at the second reading will not establish this in the BP district.
Right, I understand that. But
okay.
I'm just going back to the BP because that's highly likely where this is going to end up anyway.
Not based on Planning Commission recent action. They weren't in favor of this use in
At
that
all?
district. No, because that's what they voted down. They voted down adding this use to the BP zoning district.
Okay.
But there are several other zoning districts throughout town that could utilize this and see benefit from it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Jerns.
Can we have clarification on what was voted down there? I saw the vote was 1-6, but I was under the impression they were wanting to add or have containers, maybe allow other outside storage. Is that why it was voted down, or?
No, the formal action before the Planning Commission was to include this definition and this use in the BP zoning district as a conditional use. And I believe it's conditional, not permitted, correct? Yeah, so they had applied to add indoor storage units as a conditional use in the BP zoning district. There had been subsidiary talk, ancillary discussion about what that specific site could look like in the long term, including some shipping container storage and things like that. But that was not part of the formal application that was made. So the the BOA, excuse me, because of the conditional use application, voted down it'd be the Planning Commission voted down the inclusion of this on the list of conditional uses. They denied this going on the list of conditional uses in that zoning ordinance. The indoor storage. And then, giving their denial, the applicant decided not to pursue it any further.
Follow-up?
If I could, Community Development Manager Hanton would like to add to some of the narrative there.
Thank you, Heath. So as far as the BP district and then that use of the indoor storage facilities, the Plan Commission wanted additional research done to uphold the district as it stands today and include some more design requirements and consideration. And we discussed potentially, we have the Gateway Overlay District just north of Highway 212. That wasn't in place when the BP district was created. So we could look at potentially expanding those boundaries because that does have additional design requirements and consideration. So they would want that done before looking at adding this use to the BP district.
City Development Manager, I do have a question. Would indoor storage be a conditional use in pretty much any zoning?
We would just have to consider that. And honestly, when we probably come through with recodification, we can look at all the different districts. And so right now, the definition will just sit idle in ordinance, and then we can look at that. We did have the application for the property right where,
On 19th there.
yep,
Yep.
where Grassland Granite went in. And so that was going to be indoor storage. But at the time, because we don't have the definition or that the definition now added to any zoning districts, we just used storage units. And then it was, obviously indoor. But then when we were looking at this request from the applicant, we wanted to be specific that it is indoor storage and not to open it up for storage units, because then that does allow for shipping containers and whatnot, which we wanted to make sure was not included or was not happening in the BP district.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
I want to do a follow-up on that because it seems a little, I'm hearing what I interpret plus what I've heard a little bit about seems to be slightly different. And maybe, Lynn, it's what you're hearing as well. The concerns that I heard were what this was going to be in regards to the amount of traffic going in and out of the building, how it was going to be there, and then anything that would be outside. What I heard was there really was no concerns about if it was self-contained within that building, meaning just storage of office files, whatever it is. Is that not what their primary, because they didn't have a definition that was approved to even work with? Because that's what we're doing, that's what this reading is creating a definition, correct?
Yes, this same action was before them as well at that same meeting to define what an indoor storage facility is. So they had this in front of them, and knowing what this is by definition, we're able to, out of that context, make a determination of whether to add that to the BP conditional use list.
But they could only approve it to get it to here. They couldn't, had they approved it, it wouldn't have mattered anyway until it goes through this body to approve, correct?
The definition?
Yes,
Formally on the books, correct.
correct.
But they knew the intent behind what an indoor storage facility would be because they were approving the definition that night themselves.
Okay, so they were concerned with, let's just say that this gets approved, it's all self-contained within that building, and they were concerned that that was not a good use for that building in that area. Is that correct?
Yes, that base, I don't want to speak for the board, but that is the information that was in front of them. That's what they should have been taking action on. If they were taking on action on hypotheticals of maybe what might be down the road, that would be at their own demise, that they shouldn't have been considering those things. What they had in front of them was an application for an indoor storage facility that was specifically defined by the definition they also approved that same meeting.
Okay.
Could I add to that a little? So there's also covenants involved with this area where the BP district is. And so there was a lot of consideration and discussion about those. So they wanted to make sure that the city was administering ordinances for the BP district that were consistent with the covenants. Covenants would protect the area for the design requirements anyway, but that's how the Plan Commission felt of not wanting to recommend it.
Councilman Danforth.
Brandy, who controls the covenants there? Isn't it the development company?
And the Redland Arts Center.
Two of them. So really, the city, we're not governing that or dictating
No,
the covenants. Okay.
ever. The city never administers covenants. They just wanted the city to incorporate some of the, I guess, design requirements in our ordinance to mimic it, to double enforce it.
So can I ask a question? I'm a little bit confused here. When we do have those covenants like that, because I don't know what's in there, if something gets requested of us, it's possible it's in conflict with the covenants, correct?
Yes.
That's true. And that's
So
where
which one
several,
overrides what?
that's where several of the board members, I believe, had concern if the city were to adopt something contrary to what we know exists based on the covenants of that subdivision. Essentially, we didn't want, the city in turmoil with the Redland Arts Center or Terrax or anybody else in that subdivision because of the covenants that we know exist and how they would have otherwise prohibited certain activities such as this.
Okay.
Anybody else? If not, we don't need a vote on that. That's first reading. We'll see that back in 2 weeks, or I guess a little bit more than 2 weeks, but first meeting of next month. We will move on to 11A. Approval of Resolution 24-16, necessity for sidewalk, curb and gutter, and asphalt surfacing improvements for 315 Kemp Avenue East. Public Works Director Von Eye.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a resolution of necessity. It's a little bit unique in that it's in response to some permitted activity, construction activity here in town, in the downtown area. This is in front of the Ruins Apartments on Kemp Avenue. And as the council's, I think, full well aware that it's gone quite some time without having the sidewalk reestablished after it was removed during the construction project that's been ongoing there at that location. After several attempts to get the contractor to comply with replacing that sidewalk per permit requirements and not having any success, we've decided to go through the resolution of necessity for the city to be able to perform that work and assess those costs back to the property owner. Based on the cost estimates, there's some sidewalk there, but there's also some street paving that needs to occur and some curb and gutter work as well. The total cost estimate from the engineering office is $37,454.90. And we've put this together in conjunction with the city attorney and the city engineer and have it before the council tonight so we can move forward accordingly.
Thank you. I would look for a motion.
Second.
That's first and a second. Oh, excuse me, I have to open the public hearing. Nobody here to speak against or for this matter? Now I will look for a motion. So moved. Second by Councilman Shetty. Now I'll open it for discussion. Get her done, is that what you said?
I think a lot of people have been waiting for this
Yep.
to come, so I don't see anyone here that's against it.
Nope. Public Works Director Von Eyde, is there a timeline on this, or do we get to take this out for bid yet, or is it under the threshold that?
It is under the threshold for bidding. We do get competitive quotes still, and I believe that's already occurred and where that cost estimating has come from, and we would proceed. I believe we can do so as soon as this resolution is passed, but we'll check into that. There might be some statutory wait time there, but if not, we'll keep pressing forward as we're able to, according to the statutes.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Finance Officer Bob Zeden, the roll.
Okay. Shetty?
Aye.
Tupper?
Aye.
Danforth?
Aye.
Helene?
Aye.
Jurens?
Aye.
Peters?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on to item B, second reading of ordinance 24-11, authorizing down payment to the vendors on contracts with the city of Watertown. City Manager Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. What you have before you for the second reading, as we discussed at the last meeting, this amendment allows us to provide down payments for vendors who require them. State law does not allow for it unless we pass an ordinance that specifically says we can do that. So something gets approved in the budget, it comes to you for an award, awarding of a contract, and then if it requires a down payment, this ordinance amendment allows us to administer that up to 25% of the project cost. And I'll stand by for any questions. I'm sure our finance officer can speak more eloquently to it.
Any comment from the open or public for or against this? Seeing none, I will look for a motion. So moved by Shetty, seconded by Peters. Any discussion? Councilman Danforth.
We don't have the full language, I don't believe, in front of us here. We got the resolution, but as I was talking to City Manager Mack ahead of time, I clearly understand and I absolutely agree with doing it this way. The only part of this that I have a question on, and it's only because I'm not clear on it, is when we have an administratively approved item for procurement, do our purchasing policies require that can only proceed if it is within budgeted amounts?
Yes.
It does,
Yeah, the procurement policy specifically calls out things that are not budgeted or over budget have to come to the council.
it'd have to, okay, and that would be the case here as well? then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll go for a vote. City Finance Officer Bob Zine, roll call, please.
Okay. Shetty?
Aye.
Tupper?
Aye.
Danforth?
Aye.
Helene?
Aye.
Jurens?
Aye.
Peters?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Anybody have any other business? Councilman Danforth?
I'm kind of going to piggyback on the resolution we did for the sidewalk and the road. It's really more of a question. Part of the agreement that was reached way back in giving that land to the park and allowing the, what's it called now, the ruins? The ruins to be built there was for the contractor, the developer to provide the city the restrooms. Do we know, do we have contractual authority, for lack of better terms, a right to enforce those to be put in and charge back to the current owner?
Lisa, can you hear it? She's traveling, so I'm not sure if she's available. So we have had this discussion quite a few times internally about the bathrooms. We do have an agreement in place. I think there's some question because of the, the unfinished nature of the building, the legal matters that are surrounding the building. If we do, because we'd be a tenant within that building, if we have the ability to go in and do the work and charge it back. Lisa, she might not be able to hear us, but we can follow back up on that.
Oh, no.
Oh, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Basically, the contract did require the bathroom, but it didn't give a time frame, and it didn't really give us a remedy for enforcing it. I'm assuming at the time it was, just considered, at that time the relationship was good, and I'm assuming it was just assumed that, it would happen in due course. We would have to look into it further to really attempt.
We lost you there, Lisa. Can you hear us again?
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're kind of breaking up on us there, so. Maybe that could be a,
We will visit about it
Yep.
and get an answer back to you guys on
Yeah,
what our
because-
options are.
Because we gave up something.
Yes.
We gave up land
Right.
in order to receive that. So if it doesn't get built, then we should have something, we should get the value of that land then, if we can't get
Sure.
the bathrooms. So we should have claim to one or the other.
Councilman Peters?
There's currently no public restroom there right now, then, correct?
Correct. It's about 80% done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that? Anybody else have announcements before I start? Oh, Councilman Peters got trail mix. Well, I'm gonna, it's still July, so I'm still gonna talk fireworks. How's that? I don't know if anybody in this room that didn't make the fireworks display, but if you didn't, you sure did miss out. So, because Lou's knocked it out of the park, as they always do, but I think this is the biggest and best they've ever had, and of course, the largest fireworks display in South Dakota. So I'd like to take this time to thank quite a few people. First off, I'd like to thank a lot of city departments that I had to lean on to get this all done, and especially when we had to switch days because of the weather. I think City Manager Mack did a rain dance so she could get out of singing the national anthem, but we'll maybe hold her to that again next year. But it all turned out great. God, what a crowd! We estimated crowd at about 10,000 people. It was a great day for it. Moving it, I think, was actually a good move, but I couldn't do it without a lot of people. I shouldn't say I couldn't do it because I didn't do it. I mean, it's a team effort. So first off, I'd like to thank Jordan Amdahl for singing the national anthem. And I tell a little story there because I did have a backup for Amanda, but later that day they called me up and said they had a cold and they couldn't do it. So I called, I don't know how many people, nobody returned my phone call. They must have knew what I was calling about. So as I'm driving around the park out at Anza, I run into a friend of mine jokingly because I knew he couldn't sing any better than me. And I said, hey, you're going to sing national anthem for me? And he said, are you kidding me? But just a minute, I got somebody I can call. So first he called his brother Jared. He was out of town. Then he called Jordan. It took about 45 minutes, 3 phone calls to convince Jordan into doing it because he said, I've never did it by myself. I got no time for practice. He was at home, relaxing, and finally, after a lot of arm twisting over the phone, he agreed to do it, and this guy knocked it out of the park. He did a great job, and I couldn't thank him enough. I mean, it was the last minute, 8:30, and I finally found somebody to sing the national anthem. So I knew they didn't want me singing it, so special thanks goes out to Jordan. I'd also like to thank the Watertown Police Department, Watertown Fire Rescue, Street Division, Park and Rec Department, Solid Waste Division, Mosquito Control, Finance Department, Kelly from our Public Information Officer for getting everything out. I didn't realize the day we decided to cancel it and put it on the next day when I called her that she actually had the day off, but she got the got it out to the press and I couldn't do it without the press, put it that way, because our media partners just knocked it out of the park for us also, because I leaned on KXLG very heavily. They probably got tired of seeing me, but I leaned on them a lot, and they got it out that we changed it. So 40 businesses participated. And when I read off this list of businesses, I want you guys, whenever you run into one of these people or businesses, or not only thank them, but do business with them, because that's the great thing about the city of Watertown. I mean, I went out and raised a good share of the money. We spent $40,000 on fireworks. I raised a good share of it and put on a show for everybody. But the community always steps up to the plate and helps. So, like I say, don't only thank them, but do business with them, because when you do business local, that's what allows them to help out with things like this. I'll go through the sponsors. Platinum sponsors: City of Watertown, Dakota Bodies, Dakota Tube, First Premier Bank and Bank Card, J&J Earthworks, McKeever's Vending, Watertown Municipal Utilities. Gold sponsors were Dakota Bank, Ingalls Family Foundation, Glacial Lakes Energy, Lake Area Technical College, Persona, Stone's Truck Stop, Watertown Bid Board, Watertown Community Foundation. Our silver sponsors were Active Heating, American Bank and Trust, Clark Sinclair with Montgomery Furnitures, Custom Fabricators, Elite Sewer and Drain, Evolution Power Sports, Heilman's Roadside Gas, Max Steel, Platinum Realty, Riley Repair, Reliabank, Sign Pro, Spice Corporation with the Cowboy Country Stores for Amigos, Titan Machinery, Watertown Box, Watertown Ford Chrysler and Bobcat. Our bronze sponsors: B&G Industries, Dutch Boy Car Wash, Eastside Equipment, Exit Realty, First Bank and Trust, JP Real Estate, Sentry, Stein Sign Display, and Glenn and Darla Vilhauer. I'd like to thank everybody again. Couldn't do it without them. I'm like a little kid in a candy store at that time, so it wasn't really work for me. It was fun. So, but thanks everybody. We could start next year's list if you want. Just get a hold of me. So, thank you. Anybody else? City Manager's report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just have one item to give you a heads up on. This Thursday at the Board of Adjustment, there is an item related to the Prairie Lakes Ice Arena. It's a conditional use for bar tavern license to facilitate alcohol sales for the Shamrocks games. I know that there's been some conversation loosely throughout the community about alcohol at other events. This is not related to that. And so once, if the conditional use is approved, the license itself will come to you all for final approval. But I just wanted to give you a heads up so you didn't see it on the agenda on Thursday and be surprised. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no reason to go into executive session. So I will look for a motion to adjourn. First and a second, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night, everybody. Thank you.